our bylaws next week. But yeah, so this is the legal function now for setting speed limits. So there's a requirement to do a full speed management plan, working with Canterbury throughout the Regional Land Transport Plan program. But the interim speed management plan gives us a chance to tidy up our speed limits in our urban areas and any other areas that are no longer appropriate. The focus is around schools, as has been indicated through both the government policy statement and the Speed Limit Setting Rule 2022 as being a focus of our country. And so you'll see there's a whole list of plans included within that. It's a starting point. So we've done some initial conversation with our school travel planners. We'll be working with the schools and also have had initial conversation engagement with Arawhenua and are working with AECL on appropriate speed limits. So yeah, that's I suppose. I don't know, Andrew, have you got anything else I have missed adding there?
Have you got anything to add, Andrew?
No, well, basically it is a new environment, legislative requirement that we have to produce a speed management plan, and yeah, I must say that the process in the new rule is a lot easier than the previous process where we had to do it through bylaw. So, but yeah, the focus is on safety, and that's the reason we're doing this.
Thank you. Susie, I have a question. Do we currently have the resource to implement this activity right now, or are we better to wait until the regional plan is going? Because we have got the option to wait. Do we have the resource of staff to enable this at this current time?
So yes, a lot of the plans have already been drawn up, so it's a case of tweaking. So yes, we do with external support. So we've been working with an external provider to help pull together the consultation document. We've taken some lessons learnt from the Ashburton process on what works and what doesn't work, and a fair bit of their content as well. So we're already working with our neighbours. So I think there's a bit of repetition that we're able to do, but also incorporate the Timaru feel to it. Of note is that there has been extra funding approved under the National Land Transport Program for implementation of signage, and obviously with the variable speed limits, so that's the ones that we have, 30 kilometres past schools when at school pick up and drop off time, 50, so that has been approved under the current NLTP. So if we were to wait for the management plan, the Canterbury management plan, we'd likely miss out on that funding opportunity. So it's a case of, yes, is some internal resource, but we'll be looking to a small amount of external resource to actually pull together the consultation document. Yeah. Okay.
And would we be using that external resource regardless if we decided on option 2?
Yes, we would be.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions from the floor? Mayor Bowen.
Thank you. Look, I support option 1. I mean, we've been kicking this can down the road for a while, and it's been frustrating, obviously, and if there wasn't an issue where speed was a factor in one of these zones, I don't think we'd be very happy with ourselves holding it up. So support option 1. My question is actually around the need to consult with AECL on this particular matter. So is that to do with just Arawhenua school only, or all schools? Because, I mean, we had a good discussion this morning around, and obviously there's cost involved, and I just question if this is going too far with what we need to consult with iwi on around speed limits, and there's a cost to general ratepayer, and I just think it's a step too far that we have to. So can you explain what we do need to do as far as our legal requirements? I understand the need to consult with iwi on certain things, but speed limits just seems a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah, very good question. So under the Speed Limit Setting Rule 2022, we are required to consult with iwi prior to really going down into any detail, and then work through with detail as well. So it's a legal requirement to do so.
So the second question would be, what is the cost of having to consult under, obviously it's legally that we have to, but what is the cost then in needing to do that?
At this stage, it's a little bit unknown. We have obviously had an initial meeting out at the marae at Arawhenua, and also have made contact with AECL around forward. But yeah, at this stage, I don't have the cost, but could get back to the committee once that is known.
I would be interested, because I do get the need on certain things, but I think this one, for me personally, is a step too far, and it should be challenged because it's adding cost across the country for ratepayers. I don't think there's a need to consult specifically with iwi on speed plan over and above general consultation with all, personally. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Bowen. Councillor Piddington.
Yes, if we go to page 23, 53, nice and school, are we putting signage on every one of those streets, and do we really need all of those streets included? How do you come up with that? Because it just seems...
No, we wouldn't need signage on all of the streets. We'd create a speed zone, so you'd be able to have it at the entries and exits of the zone. And how we come up with it is around the active transport use into the schools, and I suppose in absence of a school travel plan, it's looking at the current usage of the network and how often people walk and cycle to their school. So it's about creating a fit-for-purpose school zone based on the ability for people to be able to, children to be able to safely walk and cycle and scooter if they want to their school.
I guess I get that, but if you don't have signage, how do I know as a driver that I should slow down when I turn into Kitchen Square?
So there'll be signage at the entrance. So it'll be, there'll be a school zone entrance 30 kilometres as you're getting in, so every approach. So it will be, I suppose there'll be a period of education that we have been initially talking with New Zealand Police around on how we're going to, once the implementation phase goes through of this, so working through educating drivers. Obviously there'll be a big, with the consultation will draw some attention, and then there'll be big introduction campaigns on when those speed limits are set and those signs are in place.
And sorry, I might have missed it. Is it 24 hours, 7 days a week, or maybe schools around?
Yeah, so can we bring up those maps that I've changed? So we've noted that there's already been a little bit of feedback in the media responding it, and probably a little bit of misunderstanding around the map. So if we bring up, I've just got some quick changes made to them. Interim, there we go. So you'll see there where we've got the proposed 30, so make it a bit more obvious in the maps that have been already, plans that have already been included in the report. So those proposed 30k speed limits will be in red are the permanent. So generally speaking, they are narrower street, lower volume, and there'll be infrastructure put in place over time to encourage that lower speed. Where the green goes through there on Selwyn Street, you'll note that is it's got the variable speed limit, so that's the flashing signs that will be changed, and that's what the flashing signs look like. So basically, we'll be colour coding and developing those maps plans a bit further as we work through the next steps of the process.
Thank you, Councillor Piddington. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Susie. Looks great. Just going to page 23, the one there for Craighead. And maybe I'm reading this incorrectly, but it looks there that the speed limits are not changing at all around Craighead Diocesan or Craighead Kindergarten. So are they going to just remain at 50 k's an hour, are they?
No, so that's the bit we've picked up on the way we created the maps. The Craighead itself is, the 50k is outside of the zone, and the red is basically showing that there's going to be a permanent speed.
All the other maps show a 30k.
Yeah. So it was one that we picked up that it's probably not entirely clear. So we'll flesh that out. So it's really good being able to get that feedback early on before we pull together a consultation document. So we've made some changes.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Shannon.
Thank you, Susie. With regards to OPE College on page 32, we discussed the other week, is there the potential at exactly the same time to carry that 50 right through to Murray Street?
Yes, correct, there is, and that's one that we're pulling up further maps on at the moment. So we've probably got about a list of, so these are mainly around the schools and those urban fringes that we have already pulled together the plans for, but there's probably about another 18 areas where there's just some tweaking needed to reduce speed limits in those urban fringes to reflect the current use of the area. So we're working on those at the moment. So, and that will be, as per, as a recommendation, for the, there'll be the delegated authority for the chair and deputy chair of infrastructure committee to review and sign off before we go out to public consultation, those plans.
Thank you. Councillor Pye.
Thank you. I just wanted to understand the process a little bit on how we came up with some of these areas, because if, like for example, the port, Peel Forest seems to go a long way west of the township. So is that just based on, here's an idea, put it out to the community, and so it's really important for the community to engage, or is this what the community want, and so this is what you're proposing, and see if there's any, pushback? I kind of want to understand that process, because that Peel Forest one especially seems like a long way past the actual community.
Yeah, so often it is based on feedback that we've already had from the community. The schools, not so much, because the schools is as a result of the government direction that we've had on that. But yes, for the likes of Peel Forest and Woodbury have been from consultation with the community in the past. Obviously, we might have changes. There's, we will be going out to the community boards as well throughout the process. But it will rely a little bit on the feedback from the community. But it generally has been, parts of the community have been requesting this, so we've pulled it together. Also in Peel Forest, we have created a shared path all the way out to Blandswood Road, and that will be extended further. So we're creating that environment where we've increased that active transport mode right adjacent to the road reserve, and that connection through into Blandswood, where you've got a lot of the walking tracks that people go and they come to visit us and go and walk on. So it's about creating those connections and safer environments for those.
Thank you. Any other councillors before yes, Councillor Scott.
Mine is similar to Councillor Pye. I felt that some of them were quite extreme, the length, and I presume that is because you've done a study on where the children are travelling from. But yeah, I suppose we just need to encourage that community consultation, because, like for example, the one that's up Beaconsfield is very long to be travelling 60 k's in the middle of nowhere. So I just would like to think that we will have good community consultation, because even the Pages Road one is extremely long as well, in the middle of an extremely long road. So some of them to me seem quite extreme. The town ones make sense, but the ones in our rural communities seem quite extreme in length.
Yeah, well, one of the issues we have is that, the rules are still fairly well defined on what speeds you can actually set in certain cases. So, it's either do this or not do it at all. Yeah, I do agree with you that some of the speed limits are a lot lower than they probably should be in some of those areas, particularly those rural areas, but unfortunately we're bound by the legislation.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Booth.
The government have just recently changed their rules and regulations, etc. Is that going to affect this?
It won't affect the interim speed management plan, which is probably again why I'd suggest we continue with going ahead with the interim speed management plan, because we've got a lot of outstanding requests from public and just a need to reduce speeds in some areas. It could potentially end up changing legislation again, which could impact the Canterbury or the regional speed management plans. We're not sure at the moment, because obviously the change was announced yesterday, so we haven't met as a group to find out what that's actually going to mean for us. Believe that it was more focused around state highways and reduction on speeds on state highways. So unsure at this stage, but yeah, would suggest that that we continue with the interim. And we've also got a point. I'll just find it. Sorry.
As of yesterday, government announced that they would pull back, I guess, their speed limit reduction plan, and they're now going to only focus on 1% of the state highways, basically the worst areas. So basically, the road from Timaru to Christchurch is likely to remain 100k and not 80k. So.
Okay, is there any follow-up questions from councillors? Councillor Jackson?
Yeah, it was actually in town. Just the rationale behind Hay Street down at the port going down to 30 k's an hour. That seems to be incredibly slow. And what a reasonably, I'd expect people to slow down at the crossing and that sort of stuff, but certainly down Hay Street itself, 30 k's seems really, really low.
Yes, so Hay Street at the crossing has been at request of KiwiRail, following the work that we've been doing for a long time now. I'm working with KiwiRail, meeting their objectives and requirements to upgrade the Heaton Street, Hay Street rail crossing. So we've got a temporary 30 up there at the moment. So that's why we are turning that into a permanent 30.
Isn't the whole length of it?
No, at the moment it is that section through to the crossing point. The next bit is working through with, we've got a lot of port operators that are requesting overweight permits, so heavier trucks in the port area. And we've had pushback through from New Zealand Police in regards to the safety of those trucks operating at those weights, at those speeds within the port area. So we have been approving, based on that feedback and in consultation with the operators, the overweight permit, but at a reduced speed. You'll be fine that the actual operating speed of the likes of the port roads sits around that 30 to 40 kilometres anyway, with the turning movements that they need to do through there. They don't tend to haul through at 50 kilometres per hour. So it probably is more reflective of the actual speeds that they're travelling.
Thanks for the explanation.
Okay, so we'll go for a follow-up with Councillor Booth and we'll look at the recommendations.
There's one missing, which is the one at the top of the Bay Hill. Just what you said, you would think where there's a lot of public actually crossing and trying to cross the road, the Bay Hill and Stafford Street intersection, that would be the highest priority, actually. So is there anything on the horizon for that intersection?
So we're working closely with Waka Kotahi on their full speed management plan, which will be in conjunction with the regional speed management plan. Obviously, that intersection there is predominantly State Highway 78, which is a Waka Kotahi controlled network where they still set their speed limits. But yes, Bay Hill and Stafford Street could certainly be considered as reduction areas. But the actual intersection itself, we are a little bit restricted by Waka Kotahi's road that runs through there. We do push for change, so some of the ways that we do that are by instigating lower speed limits on the streets adjacent to and getting them to work in with us. So answer is yes, we could look at our local roads and continue to push on state highways.
Thank you. Okay, let's look at the recommendations. I feel comfortable we can do recommendations 1 through to 4. Mayor Barn, are you happy to move that? Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Jackson. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Susie, for that report. I believe, Susie, you're staying with us for 7.2, road naming proposal of Brockfield Road, Timaru. So I'll take the report as read and you can speak to the report.
Yes, thank you very much. This report, we'll take it a bit as read, but just point out that the option we are recommending is the developers' third option. They are aware and okay with that. We have to obviously work within our road naming policy, but also within LIN's requirements. So the first two names that were suggested by the developer did not meet LIN's requirements due to reasons set out in the report, but basically that there are two similar names on the district already. So that's where we've come up with option 3.
Lovely.
The developer has come up with option 3.
Any questions, Councillors? Mayor? Yes, Councillor Booth.
So basically, you can't have the word Brookfield twice, is that the issue?
Yes, correct, yeah. It could add confusion to people in mail delivery and emergency services.
It's very important when it comes to emergency services that you don't have confusing names, because they're looking at these things very quickly. So,
Right, yeah, okay, thank you.
Are we all good? Mayor Barn? Councillor Burt? Oh, happy to second. Okay, so if there's no further questions, we've got to move on a second for the recommendation. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Susie. Okay, moving on to report 7.3 on page 49. So I'm going to welcome Michelle up, and Grant, are you coming up? Okay, so our third and final report is regarding text message communications for urgent water alerts, a new initiative to improve communication time of high priority public health water notifications. Take the report as read, and I'll let you speak to the report, Michelle.
Kia ora koutou, good morning. What I would like to do is do a demonstration with you all of how this will actually work. And then I'm happy to take questions after that. So for anyone that has brought their cell phone with them today, can I ask you please to switch that on? I have just sent you a message now, which hopefully should come through.
Yep.
Mayor Bowen, have you received this message? No? Would you like to read it out, perhaps just for the benefit of others in the room that have not received it?
Yeah, happy to. Kia ora, you are now subscribed to Timaru District Water Scheme Alerts. For more information or to opt out, visit timaru.gov.nz. Michelle Bunt, Water Services Community Engagement Officer, with some contact details.
I just received the T of your last name and then Water Services Community in the signature.
Okay, we'll investigate what's going on there. Does anyone else?
Text.
I got the full message.
Yeah.
So Michelle, when there is a water notification, it will be more descriptive.
Absolutely.
You won't have to go and link onto the website to find out more information.
You will need to link onto the website, and the reason for that is you are restricted to a certain number of characters in your text message, and so we need to point people to somewhere else where they can find all the full details. In the scenario of a boil water notice, it would be, Timawana customers, a boil water notice has been applied to your scheme. Please visit for more information.
Great, thank you.
We see this as another tool in the toolbox to basically communicate our water alerts to the various communities. So.
And it will not replace any other current ways of notifications either.
We're still.
It may minimise reliance on letters and things like that, but aside from that, it is proposed to keep all the other existing communications methods.
So it doesn't matter what water scheme you're on, it will be sent to everyone.
So what we are actually doing with the public is, so we have done some internal investigations of the cell phone numbers that we already hold within our databases, and we are populating those into water scheme specific groups. So if you are a ratepayer on Timawana, then you will be in the Timawana water scheme grouping, and we can actually break it down further. So for example, on Downlands, if we had an issue that only applied to, say, one particular zone, we can actually push a text message out to only those people that are connected to that particular subzone. And the reason we're able to do that is because of the work that we did last year, setting up our water scheme alert maps and breaking things down by subzones. So we're in a really good position now to actually move forward with this.
Great. Any questions for Michelle? Yes, Councillor Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I very much like this. From an elected member's point of view, I'd love to be part of every group within my ward, if you like.
Absolutely. Yep, and that's very easy for us to do. When I have previously implemented a similar scheme at another council that I used to work at, and that was what we did. We often had all our elected members and members of the senior leadership team signed up to alerts for all schemes, just to give them that, and obviously our communications people, just to give them that alert of everything that's going on. You will often find that journalists will often subscribe to every list as well to see what's going on, and that's to be expected.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Pye.
I just had a question about system to keep the database up current, to be honest, where you've got changes of properties or people, but I guess
and that's
never going to be foolproof, but do you have something in there to keep it current?
Yeah, and look, that is a very real challenge with any database, and this is no different. We are working with Council's GIS team at the moment.
Mayor Bowen, excuse me, Mayor Bowen, please. Thank you.
one of the things that we are looking at is creating a opt-in form on our website for people whose contact details we do not currently hold to subscribe themselves. And that form will have a dual purpose. It will also enable people to opt out or update their details, and we are intending to integrate that with our name and address register and contact details system within council, so that there is one source of truth, and so that when we get feedback regarding this, that someone's changed their number or they've moved to a different supply, that updates across all council systems. But it is not foolproof, and it does rely on people keeping us up to date as well.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, did I read that if you opt out, you can never opt back in again? And how, like that?
Yeah,
sounds
so that,
quite a problem. So when you go to opt out, will it send you something that's, are you sure? Because you'll never be able to come back. You see,
Correct.
It seems like
Correct. And look, we're working with a lady at Spark nationally, so we're reconfirming some of these points with her, but certainly that is how it used to work. And so it's just actually being really clear with the communications when we advertise this scheme, and helping people understand that, yeah, you're more than welcome to opt out, but there are some consequences, and you may not find out things that you want to be kept in the loop with in the future. So consider that carefully. But one of the things that actually drives opt-outs is when you overutilize the system or you use it for non-urgent things. And so that is why we are being quite cautious around what we use it for. We really want it to be more for those public health, water safety things, rather than, reminder to get your frost plugs changed in winter, for example. There's other communications tools that we have for that are better suited towards that kind of thing.
Thank you. Councillor Piddington.
Yeah, look, seems like a great scheme. I just wonder, it would be helpful, not on this platform, but another one. Stephen is quite good at letting us know when something big is happening, and go to your emails. But, just around, and I know it's run by ECAN, Floods and Civil Defence, but if someone in the council is aware of something, it might be sunshine and it's flooding at the Rangitata, some sort of system would be good to alert us to that.
That's a great point. And we in Drainage and Water are kind of proposing to be the guinea pigs for this service, but the intention is that this could then be applied to other things within council. Other councils use it for a variety of things. They use it for rubbish bin pick up and return things. They use it for calling staff into civil defence emergencies. I see no reason why it couldn't potentially be applied to giving the likes of yourselves a heads up around other, particularly critical things. I think we're saying we have a more probably pressing need for this in terms of the public safety of what we do. And so we are proposing to kind of get the system up and running and doing a lot of the legwork that then can have other benefits. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Hi, Michelle. People talking about using it for other purposes, but you did mention in your report about fatigue. And that's quite important too, isn't it, that we don't overuse that resource and then put people off using it in the future, yeah?
Correct. So I think we need to decide in principle that this is for urgent notifications only, and then stick with that decision in terms of other things that we may apply it to in the future. So, for example, if a bridge washed out or something, obviously in that kind of scenario we would be able to tap into the actual civil defence text system, which is a separate system. But for things like that, I don't think anyone's going to get upset if they get a message from us. But it is that those more advertising and promotional things, there is a real need to be quite mindful of that. But in terms of the likes of yourselves and sending yourselves updates. That is a conversation for you around what you would like to receive from council and whether this is the right tool for it.
Thank you. Mr Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just thought I'd speak to the civil defence component of that, Councillor Piddington's question, which was we did explore with Canterbury Group accessing the emergency messaging system that they have, where you give them the polygons of the affected area, and it sends out a forced message to all cell phones in that area. We do have access for that anything that constitutes a threat to people's well-being or health, but it has to reach a certain threshold. So for things that didn't reach that threshold, I think this opportunity here is appropriate. But for anything that steps into that area that might be considered civil defence emergency management, we've got that access to that system through Canterbury Group. And we can get out a message to a targeted community or area within about 30 minutes. So.
The extent of an event to use the civil defence emergency system would be, for instance, a boil water notice for Timaru. It's that sort of scale.
Anything more, councillors? Mayor? No? So the this is a receive a note on the report, so I'm happy to move that. If I've got a seconder. Thank you, Mayor Bowen. All those in favour? Aye. Carried. Okay, that would be the end of Infrastructure Committee. Close the meeting at 10:52. Thank you.
Tuesday, 14th of March, just in case you had forgotten, Community Services Committee meeting opening at 10:53. Thanks, Jess. Note apologies from Councillor Oliver. And also obviously want to welcome Rosie and Ross and Nicola. The apologies. Can I, Mayor Bowen will move and Councillor Burt will second the apologies. Okay, no, I don't know of any items of urgent business. Matters of minor nature. Is there any declarations of conflicts of interest? No. Chairman's report. Since our last standing committee meeting, I've attended a Theatre and Heritage Hub reference group meeting. I also handed out some awesome prizes at the Sensational Challenge event held by our local museum. Sister City Subcommittee meeting. I attended the Frontiera visit, which was excellent. A stadium meeting, Downlands Water Supply Committee meeting, and last week I was an apology to the local arts committee due to school camp. So I'd just like to move that report, seconded by Councillor Parker, please, Jess. Okay, so confirmation of minutes from the meeting held on the 31st of January. I will confirm those as a true and correct record. Mayor Bowen will move and seconded by Councillor Pye. Any questions to those minutes? Nope. Okay, next in line. Oh, we're going too fast for my turning of the pages. Report. So I will now hand, that's the next in line, isn't it? Yes. Sorry. So we do have a report today on the Akintyre Heritage House Gallery seismic strengthening. So I'm just going to hand it over to Nigel just to have a discussion around this report. I'll obviously table it as read, but keen for Nigel to provide an update to council and our gallery, and if we've got any questions.
Thanks, Councillor Scott. So this is essentially just a informative update for councillors on progress with the Egantai House Gallery project for earthquake strengthening work and refurbishment, and it solely relates to the Heritage Gallery House. I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Booth.
Oh, there we are. Thanks, Nigel. This is a bit of an ongoing saga, this. We started talking about this probably back in 2019, and there was someone that was supposed to be getting reports done, and we've been putting money aside, but the fact is there's a fence around it and the grass has grown, and not much has happened. And so last report I received was that we'd gone out for tender but got no one to tender for it. So I believe the money is there. You know, I'm concerned that actually there's nothing happening, and this report really doesn't tell me anything new, and nothing. So can you extrapolate a little, or can you actually, broaden what is actually happening? Is this document out for tender? Have there been contractors appointed? Where really is this? Because I mean, the people have been in there. The art community have been sitting, waiting patiently for something to happen, reopen their art gallery, and I guess they've come to the conclusion perhaps they won't get a new art gallery, but they desperately need their old one reopened, and so they can bring their art out for exhibition.
Happy to provide some responses to you. I just note that the Chief Executive and Andrew Dixon are at the table. Did you speak to that, or are you happy for me to reply?
Yeah, one of the issues is we're dealing with a heritage building which is extremely complex, and the original design for strengthening it, that went to market and was no bids on it, as stated in the report there. So we're having to rethink our whole procurement and how we do this, and it's going to be about risk sharing, to be honest, because putting all the risk on the contractor, given it's the size of the risk and the heritage side of it, is unacceptable. So we're going to have to look at that. Plus the fact, add to that was the fact we got more updated cost estimates, and it showed that there was insufficient funding. So part of that gap has been plugged with the Better Off funding, and that has just become available, and we're still going to be putting forward a little bit extra funding in the annual plan. So once we get that funding confirmed, we can then work on the best way to procure and get this project done.
Mayor Bowen.
You go first, I'll follow.
Yeah, look, just a couple of concerns. I know, Alan, it has been a long time, but the risk, obviously, the cost has gone up. I noted originally it was $3 million, $1 million from ratepayers, $1 million hopefully from government, and $1 million from fundraising. I'm now concerned that you're saying it's going up. Do you have an estimate of where it's going to cost? And while we've got the 700, it seems to me ratepayers are up for 2.3 million plus whatever this extra is going to be. So what's the process around that?
From memory, the cost is just over 3 million to actually complete this project. This is the latest cost estimate. So, so 700,000 is coming from Better Off funding, and then there was already just 2 million, I think, in the budget, 2.1 million already. So there is a little bit of a gap there, but it's not huge, and we are managing it.
I'm just trying to remember the exact amount over 3 million. But I can't quite, but we could probably get that for you pretty quickly at what it is, potentially even while we're, for the next item.
I guess it's around budgeting and it's not around the theatre. We put a million, so how do we now have 2.1 in when we've only ever agreed as a council at $1 million for the ratepayer? This is what kind of, I get a bit confused around. How has $1 million turned into 2.1?
So it's into the annual plan, which is a decision you'll get to make. So, and one of the challenges with earthquake-prone buildings is the strengthening of them is developing and the understanding. And so when we started out, there's been a greater understanding develop about it. But in actual fact, I'm pretty sure, and I'm looking at Jason, it's in the annual plan for the next year for you to consider, which is going to come up at the meeting next week for you to consider that. So that's why we've referenced that additional amount of money. So we're asking you to put it in at this point.
Okay, so it's not in there.
It's not sitting in there at the moment, it's going to come in. Yeah, that's correct.
And
Yes.
that's why we're not tendering the actual construction until that funding is confirmed.
Thanks, and yeah, like, I mean, we've had quite a few iterations bring projects together, and obviously now we've sort of pulled them apart again and doing the work on the house. I had a phone call from someone in December, local builder, in regard to the fact that they would have been interested, and I did share that with Eric, and he had the information, and obviously the concern, a lot of these builders are actually got a lot in front of them again. Pressures have come on nationally with the cyclone, etc., and resources I know already are, going up that way. Are we going to look to, talk with building companies that have done the work, this type of work specifically, because there are two or three, and focus on them, and your point around de-risking, when you're taking it out for tender, I'm not sure if that's de-risking. So what is the exact process? How can we guarantee we get someone to do this work? Because I think the only way we are is by council taking a risk at the end of the day. Otherwise, nothing's ever going to move forward, because this is not, there's no guarantee with this sort of work, is there? There's so much risk for the building company at this moment.
Yeah, the de-risking of the project is about how you actually procure it and how you pay for the work. So, at one end of the scale, you've got a lump sum price. That's it. That's all we're paying. The contractor gets 100% of the risk. The other end is we perhaps go back to, unit rates, time-based cost, and that's where council takes all the risks. And I think the idea is to get somewhere in the middle there.
I think to your point, Mayor Bowen, the procurement method used with these sort of specialist areas of work is something that's quite important in making sure you get someone, or you get people who have the skill to do it. And I think we do have to think about that in terms of making sure we introduce the right tension to ensure that we protect our negotiating position when we go to do it. So the procurement method does, in these areas that are specialised or challenging, become quite important.
Yeah, I think it's very important that we have early contractor involvement in the actual design process as well, to ensure that it is actually buildable at a realistic price.
Just a quick question, the Better Off funding, is there a time frame when it has to be spent by? Are we going to be shackled in any type of way with time constraints and all that sort of stuff?
There is a time frame, but we've got quite a bit of time up our sleeve. It's measured not in months, but 2 or 3 years, I think. So yeah, that's not, the constraint won't be the time frame on that. Yeah, but it's a good question, because it is relevant.
Look, it would still appear to me that we've sort of got like paralysis when it comes to actually getting our projects underway. I mean, as we've talked about this, the price has increased probably threefold. So I presume we've got a pile of reports this high, but actually there's been no action. So how can we get some of these projects underway? I guess I'm quite concerned about that. And this one is certainly sitting there that has been there for way too long. And I'd just like to see someone take ownership, actually, and get on with it. So and potentially with a local, don't count the local ability of our builders out, because they're actually doing a lot of that work here in our own environment now.
Yeah, one comment I will make is I think there was, in this project, there was a little bit of what I call distraction in the fact that there was a look at what is the greater plan for the art gallery, and a lot of work was done on the architectural design of the overall replacement of the main building as such, which did take a little bit of focus and time off the actual fixing up of the heritage house. But we're back on track with that.
Yeah, and we did tender it a while ago. It was that we didn't get anybody, so we've had to go back and make sure that we do it properly, so that we actually have when the project is let, it's let in a way that ensures that the outcome sought is delivered and at a price that is expected and agreed.
When can we expect that to happen?
We're planning to go to tender mid-June.
Yeah, mid-June we plan to have a report to the tenders committee.
Yeah, sorry, just to follow up. Attached to timing with councillor Booth, so out to tender timeframe starting to be work done before Christmas?
That will depend on contractor availability and the outcome of the tender process.
Go on, to say yes.
If we'll put, the tenders will close and be considered, and if there's a suitable tender, it'll be let before, I would have thought before Christmas.
So there is, a couple of ones that have done heritage type work in town, so have we started conversations with those ones to make sure they are, no, not yet, I see Hamish is shaking his head, so, no. Oh, that's right. So we have, but we will be.
It will be.
Yeah, because I know there's 2 or 3 probably that could do that.
We're always a bit careful before you go and set the tender, send the tenders out, because you've got to ensure that they don't then disqualify themselves from having too much involvement prior to the process. So just how that's managed needs a bit of care and thought.
I just think 6 years is long enough, okay? So, yeah, let's see some action.
Yeah, no, and I fully support you, councillor Booth, and I know that within the team there is a motivation to get this project underway. I've been involved with many email threads showing the motivation there, so I'd like to reassure you that we will get this project delivered. The recommendation is the Community Services Committee receive and note the Eglantine Heritage House Gallery seismic strengthening refurbishment project update. I have a move from Mayor Bowen and a seconder from councillor Pye. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, there is no, that's it. I will close the meeting at 11:09. Jess, thank you.
Morena anō, no mai haere mai, and welcome everyone to our Commercial and Strategy Committee meeting, and I'll call for apologies, and I don't think we have any at this stage now. No identifying of any items of urgent business or minor nature. It stands. Do we have any conflicts of interest? No, moving on. Chairman's report. Since the last standing committees, I've attended council meetings, LTP workshops, audit and risk, tender and procurement, and reviews of liquor licensing report, and also contact with our licensing commissioner. I'll move that report. Someone seconded. Councillor Oliver. All those in favour? Against? So carried. Thank you. Moving to item 6, confirmation of minutes. Minutes for the meeting held the 31st of January 2023. Someone like to move those minutes as a true and accurate representation? Yeah, Your Worship, the Mayor and Councillor Parker. Thank you. Any discussion in relation to that? All those in favour? Aye. Against? So carried. So moving along to our reports, item 7, 7.1, the Council Investments and Borrowings report. I'll just get there myself. So I'd like to call Andrea up to talk to this report. Thank you.
So this report is...
I don't think it's on. Sorry.
So this report is as where we were standing at December 2022, and it largely had remained unchanged from the quarter prior. However, the next quarter, the 31st of March 23, there will be some changes to this report because towards the end of February, we borrowed an additional $25 million, which will have an impact on our debt to revenue ratio. So we'll see what that does to the bottom line at that point in time.
Excellent. Questions, councillors? No questions in relation to that? Someone like to move that? Oh, over here. I'm not seeing that red light. Quick to the Councillor Booth.
In regards to our interest, how much money we're allowed to, there's a band or a level of interest that we're actually allowed to pay in relation to rates as a percentage. What is that? What is our policy in regards to that?
That I'm not sure. I would have to get back to you about that.
Yeah, I don't believe there's any fixed policy around the percentage of interest that we can or cannot pay. So we certainly have policies around our revenue to debt, but there's no policy around what percentage our interest should or should not be.
Okay.
Excellent. Your Worship, Mayor.
Sorry, I mean, to your point, it's an interesting one because it's the affordability, it's the ability to pay interest, etc., on long-term debt, but it might affect credit ratings, as an example, with Fitch, if it were substantially higher than it is now. So that's where it could.
And that's a really good point. So Fitch look at our affordability, our debt levels, the amount of interest that we're paying now, the amount of interest that we're going to pay in the future. And so if all of a sudden 30% of our rate take was spent on interest, then that would become an issue. But it's certainly not an issue at this present point in time.
Yeah, I guess I just had an idea that it was either one or the other, whichever it was greater. So at the moment we're 2.8 or 2.1 times, or X amount of interest as a percentage of income. So I'm not sure, I just read that somewhere, but perhaps it wasn't right.
As Andrew mentioned, we'll look into that and come back to you if that's the case.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so someone like to note that you worship the Mayor, and the seconder, Councillor Shannon. All those in favour? Against? So carried. Moving to item 7.2, financial report for the months ending January 2023. So that's that 7-month period. And again, I'd like to call Andrea to talk to that report. Thank you.
So as at the 31st of January 2022, 23 actually, we had a deficit of $7 million. Majority of that deficit remains the 4.5 million depreciation, with waste and roading contributing. The remaining areas continue to be on track with what was originally budgeted. And we look at the financial position, once again, that's remained same, but borrowings, as I alluded before, end of February will go up by 25 million. So they were taken out by LGFA with various rates and various terms. So the rates that we were able to get was between 4.75 and 5.75, and we took out some up to 5 years.
And I think it's important to note that while the headline number of 7 million sounds large in terms of the depreciation, the emergency works around roading and the waste, all of these items are items that we're addressing in the annual plan. So next Tuesday we're considering the annual plan in its entirety. Tomorrow councillors will receive the papers in relation to that, and that's where a lot of these things are addressed. At the moment they're issues this year, we're addressing them as part of the annual plan going forward.
Okay, questions, Councillor Pillington?
Yeah, I note 4.5, Jason, in depreciation for the year. It'll be about 7.7 mil, and we're addressing it next year. So how are we getting around it this year? The $7.7 million we're going to be short.
So it's a non-cash, depreciation is non-cash. We are still spending, we're still certainly spending in terms of the work that we're doing around the renewals and replacements and the contracts that we have in place. It will come through as a deficit at the end of the year, and certainly not funded, whereas next year in terms of the annual plan we look at how we're going to fund it going forward.
Okay. And my second question is on page 26. I see we've dropped, taken 12.6 million off our annual capital spend. What are we not doing to save that 12.6 million?
Can I just clarify, is this the difference between the forecast and the budget that we have? Probably Mr Dixon could speak to that. From my sense, there's a few timing differences in terms of some of the programs that we're doing. So it's not like we're making a decision not to do anything. There are just some projects which, through their timing, have moved from, like the art gallery potentially, from being done this financial year into the next financial year. So some of those will be carried forward. So it's not like
it would be good to have that detail though in the report. You know, so that makes sense, because that's quite a big number.
Yeah, of the notable projects, and among that figure is your theatre is one where we were planning just to be underway by now. So that's quite I think about 6 million or 7 million in regard to that. There's also the airport terminal extension that is being brought forward because we're still assessing the needs around the earthquake strengthening and what Air New Zealand requirements are. So they're two that I know of. Yeah, there may be others there that but generally, yeah, we intend to do them. It's just a timing issue.
And the annual plan information that will come out tomorrow will show clearly what we're moving from this financial year to next financial year, and we'll detail that out.
It's good to have that clarity. And my last question, the green triangle asterisks on the statement of financial position, there's no notes to what they actually mean. There's about 4 of them.
Sorry, repeat the question in terms of...
On page 38, there seems to be some green asterisks of the financial assets. So there's some notations on there, but there's no explanation of what they are.
So what those are is just a spreadsheet formula saying that the formula above is not consistent with the formula below. So there's actually no commentary behind that. It's just a change in formula from a spreadsheet perspective.
Okay, that's handy to know.
Sorry, yes. And they come up with, we can't get rid of them. Yeah.
Excellent. Councillor Bowen.
That's all right. Yeah, excuse. Question, sorry, I forget what page, but it was that's probably for you, Andrew, 283K over budget, road and street landscape costs, mainly CBD maintenance. What are some of the CBD maintenance projects we've had to do?
That is related partially to the CBD or hub or city town strategy. So there is a bit of operational expenditure there. But also lift damage that we're having, vandalism, is certainly increasing the costs in that area as well. Although unfortunately we're not covered for insurance because of the excess side of things, but yeah, that is adding up. We have increased our cleaning regime and about to step that up yet again as well.
So, I mean, my only thinking around that is that costs should lie where they lie in regard to if it's related to the city town, then it should fit with in those budgets, unless it is actually pure R&M effectively, which that budget is, I'm assuming.
The city town budget sits within road, streets and landscapes activity.
So you're saying this is part of the city town?
Yes.
It
It
includes
includes
so
city
it's
town
not.
and also general CBD maintenance as well.
Okay.
And also noting that, cost escalations too, is 20% up is the latest cost escalation increases.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, so there's, it would be good to, I mean, what I'd like to see, we've got our CBD maintenance budget, and it's just, do you know what I mean? It's not very clear, it's quite cloudy, so.
Yes, we do track those individual expenditures below this level, but so that information is available.
Well, yeah, I'll have a think over lunch. Thanks.
So what I'm hearing is that in terms of splitting out between city town and just regular repairs and maintenance, just to understand what the drivers of those things are. Yeah. And city town they've got capital budgets and a bit of operational budget as well, so that's why it comes in.
Councillor Kahi?
Oh yeah, look, just generally into Councillor Piddington's point, if there's issues, we're quite happy to sort of notate and make those adjustments if there are issues that will enhance the readability and understandability of the reports in terms of some of those legends or colour codings or whatever they are. So we can note those as they come through, because we do want to try and give an understanding of what is in there.
Yeah, I guess the theatre was noted what that spend was, but the other, which is quite a chunk, wasn't. So on those big numbers, it would be good to know which projects they're assigned to.
Yeah, and we'll look to sort of provide a bit more detail in subsequent reports as they come through.
Yes, Councillor Pye.
It's probably a question for Mr Dixon. On page 36, we say that the cemetery's new site purchase is currently 2 million over budget, and that's timing. In the Environmental Services Committee, the submission on the district plan, we talked about a zone change required for a cemetery purchase. Are they two different bits of land, or have we paid for something subject to a zone change, or how does that work?
Yeah, we have purchased the land, and then it's up to us to do the zone change. Given that cemeteries is a critical piece of community infrastructure, we're reasonably confident that will be successful in that change.
Any other questions? Just touching on that old chestnut, I know that some really, really prepared councillors here that if you have had prep on the papers and you could get those into, like Jason, beforehand, despite any revelations that always come up and questions come out of questions, that's fine. It would be really good, because then you can get that real considered, appropriate level of information there right from the beginning. So we've got a call back on the interest, but on that one. So just on that old chestnut, sorry guys. So with that in mind, and no other further matters in relation to that, someone like to move that paper? Councillor Jackson? Good on you. And Councillor Parker. All those in favour? Against? So carried. And moving through. I have no other matters of a of urgent business or in minor nature, so I'll call this meeting closed at 11:58.
11:27.
Oh, sorry, 11:20. I thought they had merged at the top. Mind you, it was probably more wishful thinking than anything. Thank you. Correct.